Welcome back to Quiet Civilizations. Tonight, you will spend an entire year in ancient Egypt. Not as a pharaoh. Not as a famous queen. Not as a powerful priest standing within towering temples. Instead, you are one of the millions of ordinary people whose names have been forgotten by history. You are a farmer. You live beside the Nile River more than 3,000 years ago. Your house is small. Your possessions are few. And yet your life is connected to one of the greatest civilizations humanity has ever created. If you arrived here suddenly from the modern world, you would probably struggle immediately. There are no supermarkets. No electricity. No running water. No weather forecasts. No hospitals. No machines to perform difficult work. Everything depends on human effort. And every day begins before sunrise. The first thing you notice is the darkness. Ancient Egypt is quiet at this hour. The stars remain visible overhead. The air feels cool against your skin. That sensation will not last long. Within a few hours the desert sun will transform the landscape completely. For now, however, the world belongs to silence. You step outside your mud brick home. The village around you is slowly waking. A few lamps glow through doorways. Somewhere nearby a dog barks. A donkey announces its presence with remarkable enthusiasm. The sounds are familiar to everyone here. For thousands of years they have marked the beginning of another day. Ahead lies the Nile. Even in darkness you can sense it. The river moves quietly through the landscape, carrying life wherever it goes. Without it, Egypt would not exist. To the east and west stretches desert. Harsh. Dry. Unforgiving. Yet beside the river, green fields flourish. Villages prosper. Cities rise. And every day begins before sunrise. The first thing you notice is the darkness. Ancient Egypt is quiet at this hour. The stars remain visible overhead. The air feels cool against your skin. That sensation will not last long. Within a few hours the desert sun will transform the landscape completely. For now, however, the world belongs to silence. You step outside your mud brick home. The village around you is slowly waking. A few lamps glow through doorways. Somewhere nearby a dog barks. A donkey announces its presence with remarkable enthusiasm. The sounds are familiar to everyone here. For thousands of years they have marked the beginning of another day. Ahead lies the Nile. Even in darkness you can sense it. The river moves quietly through the landscape, carrying life wherever it goes. Without it, Egypt would not exist. To the east and west stretches desert. Harsh. Dry. Unforgiving. Yet beside the river, green fields flourish. Villages prosper. Cities rise. Temples are built. Entire generations survive because of this single ribbon of water. The Nile is not merely a river. It is the foundation of civilization. As dawn approaches, the horizon begins to brighten. Shades of blue become gold. Birds emerge from reeds along the riverbank. Palm trees appear as dark silhouettes against the growing light. The village comes alive. Families prepare meals. Farmers gather tools. Children help with morning chores. Boats begin moving across the water. Another ordinary day has begun. And in ancient Egypt, ordinary days are what truly matter. History often remembers kings. But civilizations are built by ordinary people. People who plant crops. Repair homes. Raise children. Bake bread. Carry water. And perform countless small tasks that keep society functioning. For the next year, you will become one of them. Your survival depends on understanding the rhythms of this world. Most importantly, the rhythm of the Nile itself. Because everything in Egypt begins and ends with the river. The longer you remain in ancient Egypt, the more you begin to understand a simple truth. Nothing here is truly independent. Every field, every village, Every boat, every meal, every family, every temple, every city, all of it depends upon a single river. The Nile is so familiar to the people around you that they rarely stop to think about it. To them, its presence is as natural as the sunrise. It has always been there. It always will be. Or so they hope. You walk toward the river shortly after dawn. The air remains cool, though the warmth of the coming day is already beginning to make itself known. The path beneath your feet has been traveled countless times. Generations of farmers have walked this same route carrying tools, baskets, fishing nets, and water jars. The riverbank is already busy. A fisherman checks his nets. 2 boys lead a donkey toward the water. A woman fills large clay jars for her household. Nearby, a small boat drifts quietly against its mooring. Nothing seems extraordinary. Yet every activity before you exists because of the Nile. Without it, this village would disappear. The fields would become dust. The animals would perish. The people would move elsewhere or face starvation. Ancient Egyptians understand this deeply. The river is not simply useful. It is essential. You kneel near the water's edge. The surface reflects the morning sky. Tiny ripples move across the current. Birds glide overhead. Everything feels calm, peaceful, predictable. Yet appearances can be deceiving. Because this gentle river controls nearly every aspect of life. Far to the south, beyond lands most villagers will never see, seasonal rains fall in distant regions. Months later, those waters travel northward. Eventually they reach Egypt. When they arrive, the river rises. Fields disappear beneath floodwaters. Villagers watch carefully. Too little flooding can mean poor harvests. Too much flooding can destroy homes and crops. The ideal flood is neither weak nor excessive. It must be exactly right. Modern people often assume ancient civilizations possessed complete control over their environment. The reality is very different. Nature remains in charge. The Nile gives life. But it also determines how much life can flourish. Every year families wait anxiously to discover what kind of flood the river will bring. The uncertainty never completely disappears. You continue walking along the riverbank. Soon you encounter several farmers discussing conditions in nearby fields. They speak with the ease of people whose lives revolve around agriculture. Every observation matters. The height of the water. The condition of the soil. The health of animals. The appearance of crops. No detail is too small. Their survival depends upon paying attention. Modern weather forecasts do not exist. Agricultural reports do not exist. There are no satellite images. Instead, knowledge travels through conversation, observation, experience, and memory. The older farmers remember floods from decades earlier. They compare one year to another. Stories become records. Memories become guidance. The accumulated wisdom of generations helps communities prepare for whatever the river may bring. As the sun climbs higher, activity increases. Boats move steadily along the water. Some carry grain. Others transport pottery. Others carry passengers traveling between villages. The Nile serves another purpose beyond agriculture. It is Egypt's greatest highway. Travel over land can be slow and difficult. The river, however, connects distant communities with remarkable efficiency. Merchants transport goods. Officials deliver messages. Priests travel between temples. Farmers visit markets. The current and seasonal winds allow boats to move both north and south. The river creates connections. And connections create civilization. You watch one vessel pass by. Its sail catches the morning breeze. Crew members move confidently about the deck. The boat disappears around a bend, continuing a journey that may cover hundreds of miles. Such travel is common here. The Nile links people who will never meet. A farmer in one region may eat grain grown elsewhere. A temple may receive stone transported from distant quarries. A craftsman may work with materials gathered hundreds of miles away. The river ties everything together. As the day grows warmer, you seek shade beneath a cluster of palm trees. Nearby, children play along the river bank. Their laughter carries across the water. For them, the Nile has always existed. They cannot imagine a world without it. Most will spend their entire lives living near its waters. Many will become farmers like their parents. Some may become fishermen. Others may learn trades. A few might travel farther than anyone in their family ever has. Yet regardless of where life leads them, the river will remain central to their existence. The hours pass slowly. That is something else you begin to notice about ancient Egypt. Life moves at a different pace. There are no engines. No electronic notifications. No constant stream of information demanding attention. Work is hard. Sometimes exhausting. But it follows rhythms established by nature. Sunrise. Sunset. Flood. Planting. Harvest. Season after season. Year after year. The river sets the schedule. Human beings adapt. As afternoon approaches, sunlight sparkles across the water. The heat becomes more intense. Many people retreat temporarily into shade. Animals do the same. Even the village seems quieter. The Nile alone continues moving. Patiently. Steadily. Unconcerned with human plans. Ancient Egyptians recognized something sacred in that reliability. The Nile is not worshipped simply because it provides water. It is respected because it represents continuity. A promise renewed every year. A reminder that life will continue if nature remains balanced. As evening finally approaches, the heat begins to fade. Golden light spreads across the landscape. Boats return home. Farmers leave the fields. Families gather for the evening meal. The village settles into familiar routines. You stand once more beside the river. The water reflects the colors of sunset. Orange. Gold. Deep red. For a moment everything feels still. The river seems peaceful. Almost gentle. But now you understand its true importance. The Nile is not merely part of ancient Egypt. It is ancient Egypt. Without the river there would be no fields. No villages. No trade. No temples. No civilization. Only desert stretching endlessly toward the horizon. And as darkness slowly returns, you realize that your entire year here will be shaped by this remarkable waterway. The story of Egypt is, in many ways, the story of a river. And that story is only beginning. Several weeks have passed since you first arrived in the village. By now, many things that once seemed strange have become familiar. You no longer wake in confusion when roosters announce the coming dawn. You have learned the winding paths between homes. You recognize many of the villagers by sight. And each day, without thinking about it, your eyes drift toward the Nile. Everyone's do. Because the most important event of the year is approaching. The flood. To a visitor from the modern world, the idea may seem unusual. Floods are often associated with danger and destruction. In ancient Egypt, however, the annual flooding of the Nile is a source of hope. Entire communities depend upon it. Without the flood, the soil loses its fertility. Without fertile soil, crops fail. Without crops, hunger follows. So while people may speak casually about many things, the condition of the river is never far from their thoughts. As dawn breaks one morning, you notice a small crowd gathered near the riverbank. Nothing dramatic is happening. No emergency has occurred. The villagers are simply watching. Observing. Waiting. An elderly farmer points toward the water. At first you see nothing unusual. Then you notice it. The river seems slightly higher than before. Not much. Only a little. Yet everyone notices. People who have spent their lives beside the Nile become skilled observers. Tiny changes matter. A few inches today may signal much larger changes in the weeks ahead. The villagers exchange quiet comments. Nobody celebrates yet. Nobody makes predictions. Experience has taught them patience. The Nile follows its own schedule. Human beings can only watch and adapt. As the days pass, conversation increasingly revolves around the flood. At meals. In fields. At the marketplace. Everywhere. People compare observations. Some believe the water is rising quickly. Others advise caution. A fisherman claims the current feels stronger than usual. A farmer insists he has seen similar conditions before. Everyone has an opinion. No one has certainty. For ancient Egyptians, uncertainty is simply part of life. Modern people often expect immediate answers. They check forecasts. Read reports. Monitor data. In this village, knowledge arrives more slowly. Information spreads through observation and discussion. Nature reveals its intentions gradually. Patience becomes a valuable skill. One afternoon you accompany several villagers to inspect fields near the river. The walk is pleasant. Palm trees sway gently in the warm breeze. Birds dart among reeds. The landscape appears peaceful. Yet beneath that calm surface lies a quiet tension. The flood will determine much of what happens during the coming year. A generous flood could bring abundance. A poor flood could create hardship. Everyone understands the stakes. When you reach the fields, farmers examine the soil carefully. They discuss where water is likely to spread. They identify areas requiring repairs. Small embankments must be strengthened. Channels need clearing. Tools must be prepared. The flood may seem distant, but preparation has already begun. Ancient Egyptian agriculture depends upon planning. Communities that prepare effectively are better able to benefit from the river's gift. Communities that neglect preparation risk losing valuable opportunities. Work continues steadily. No one rushes. No one panics. There is simply much to do. As evening approaches, you return to the village. The setting sun transforms the Nile into a ribbon of gold. Children play along the river bank. Fishermen secure their boats. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Life continues as usual. Yet beneath every ordinary activity remains the same awareness. The flood is coming. Several days later, you visit a nearby temple. The building is modest compared to the enormous monuments future generations will associate with Egypt. Nevertheless, it commands respect. Villagers arrive carrying offerings. Priests perform rituals. Incense drifts through the warm air. Religion and daily life are deeply connected here. For many Egyptians, the flood is not merely a natural event. It is part of a larger cosmic order. A sign that harmony exists between humanity, nature, and the divine. People pray for balance. Not excessive flooding. Not insufficient flooding. Just enough. The ideal flood becomes a symbol of stability itself. You notice how often Egyptians value balance. Their world is filled with uncertainties. Weather. Harvests. Illness. Accidents. Yet they believe order can emerge from uncertainty. That belief provides comfort. The river may not always behave exactly as desired. But faith encourages people to hope for the best while preparing for difficulties. As the weeks continue, evidence of the coming flood becomes increasingly difficult to ignore. The river rises steadily. Water reaches places that were dry only months earlier. Farmers visit the river more frequently. Boats adjust their moorings. Children excitedly discuss what they have observed. The entire village becomes more attentive. One evening, an elderly man tells stories about floods from his youth. A group gathers around to listen. The old farmer remembers years of extraordinary abundance. fields so fertile that harvest baskets seemed endless. He also remembers years of disappointment. Floods that arrived weekly and left farmers worried. His stories stretch back decades. As he speaks, you realize something important. The Nile does more than nourish crops. It connects generations. Grandparents share experiences with grandchildren. Lessons pass from one generation to the next. Knowledge accumulates. The river becomes a thread linking past, present, and future. Darkness gradually settles across the village. Stars appear overhead. The Nile reflects moonlight. Somewhere nearby, a musician plays a simple melody. The sound drifts softly through the night air. You sit quietly beside the water. Waiting. Like everyone else. Watching the river continue its patient journey northward. The flood has not fully arrived yet. But its presence can already be felt. In conversations. In preparations. In hopes and worries. In the countless small adjustments people make to their daily routines. Ancient Egypt often appears timeless when viewed from thousands of years in the future. Massive monuments create the impression of permanence. Yet life here is anything but static. Everything changes with the seasons. Everything depends upon the river. And right now, an entire civilization waits for water. Not with fear, but with anticipation. The Nile is preparing to transform the landscape once again. Fields will disappear beneath spreading waters. Fresh soil will arrive from distant lands. New opportunities will emerge. New challenges will follow. The cycle that has sustained Egypt for generations is about to begin again. And as you watch moonlight shimmer across the dark surface of the river, you realize that you are witnessing something that has repeated itself for thousands of years. A civilization holding its breath. Waiting for the flood. One morning, before the sun has fully risen, you wake to an unusual feeling. Nothing dramatic has happened. There are no alarm bells. No urgent voices. No signs of danger. Yet the village seems different. The air itself feels charged with anticipation. You step outside and immediately notice people moving toward the river. Families. Farmers. Fishermen. Children. Many are smiling. Others remain quietly observant. Everyone is looking in the same direction. Toward the Nile. You join them. The path is familiar now. You have walked it many times during the past weeks. But today feels different. As you approach the riverbank, the reason becomes obvious. The water has risen significantly. Areas that were dry only days ago have disappeared beneath a broad expanse of muddy water. The flood has truly begun. The Nile has arrived. For a few moments, everyone simply watches. There is something strangely beautiful about the scene. The river no longer seems confined to its usual channel. Instead, it spreads outward across the land. Patiently. Steadily. Transforming the landscape. Children point excitedly toward newly flooded areas. Farmers exchange careful observations. Older villagers nod quietly, comparing this year's flood to those they remember from the past. Nobody appears frightened. The reaction surprises you. A modern observer might expect concern. After all, water is covering fields and pathways. Yet here, the flood is viewed differently. This is not destruction. This is renewal. The muddy water carries one of Egypt's greatest treasures. Fertile soil. Far to the south, seasonal rains have washed nutrient-rich sediment into the river system. Now that sediment is arriving here. The flood spreads it across the countryside. When the waters eventually retreat, they will leave behind fresh layers of fertile earth. That soil will feed crops. Those crops will feed families. Those families will sustain villages, cities, and kingdoms. The flood is not merely an event. It is the foundation of life itself. Throughout the day, people continue visiting the river. The atmosphere resembles a community gathering. Neighbors discuss conditions. Friends exchange news. Children treat the occasion as an adventure. For them, the changing landscape feels almost magical. Places that were once fields now resemble shallow lakes. Paths vanish beneath water. The familiar world takes on an entirely new appearance. You soon discover that the flood changes daily routines as well. Certain areas become inaccessible. Travel routes must be adjusted. Boats suddenly become more important. Some locations that required long walks can now be reached directly by water. The village adapts quickly. Generations of experience have taught people how to live with the river's rhythms. Flexibility becomes second nature. A farmer who spent months tending crops now focuses on maintenance and preparation. A fisherman finds new opportunities in expanding waterways. Merchants adjust their plans. Families reorganize chores. Life does not stop. It simply changes direction. As the days pass, the flood continues spreading across the landscape. From a small hill overlooking the region, you observe the transformation. The view is remarkable. What was once a patchwork of fields has become a vast network of shimmering waters. Palm trees rise above the flood like small islands. Villages stand on higher ground. Boats move through areas where people recently walked. The entire landscape seems alive. Constantly changing. Constantly adapting. Watching this transformation, you begin to understand why ancient Egyptians viewed the Nile with such respect. The river possesses immense power. Not the violent power of a storm. Not the sudden power of an earthquake. A different kind of power. A slow, deliberate power. The power to shape entire civilizations. The power to determine where people live. What they eat. How they work. And whether communities prosper or struggle. One afternoon, you accompany a farmer named Hori to inspect flooded areas near his family's land. Hori does not appear worried. In fact, he seems pleased. As he studies the water, he points toward the muddy surface. Although you cannot hear his exact words, his meaning is clear. He sees opportunity. He sees future harvests. He sees the promise hidden beneath the floodwaters. Years of experience allow him to view the landscape differently. Where outsiders see submerged fields, he sees fertile soil waiting to emerge. Where outsiders see inconvenience, he sees preparation for abundance. It is a perspective shaped by generations. As evening approaches, the floodwaters reflect the colors of sunset. Gold. Orange. Deep crimson. The entire countryside seems to glow. Birds gather along newly formed shorelines. Frogs emerge from flooded areas. Fish explore regions previously inaccessible. Life responds quickly to changing conditions. Nature wastes no time. The flood creates opportunities for countless living things. Humans are only one part of a much larger system. The realization feels humbling. Ancient Egyptians do not control the Nile. They cooperate with it. They observe its rhythms, adapt to its changes, and build their lives around its cycles. This relationship between people and nature lies at the heart of Egyptian civilization. Many modern societies attempt to dominate their environments. Ancient Egypt often takes a different approach. The river sets the terms. Human beings learn to live within them. That evening, the village gathers for a simple meal. Conversation naturally returns to the flood. Everyone has noticed something different. The speed of the water. The height of the river. The condition of nearby land. Observations are exchanged freely. Knowledge becomes a shared resource. One person's experience benefits the entire community. You realize that survival here depends not only on the river but also on cooperation. No family faces the flood alone. Neighbors help neighbors. Information circulates. Resources are shared. Generations teach one another. Civilization is built from countless small acts of cooperation repeated over time. The flood merely makes that truth more visible. Later, under a sky filled with stars, you return to the riverbank. Moonlight dances across the water. The flooded landscape appears peaceful, almost dreamlike. In the distance, a boat moves silently through the darkness. Its reflection stretches across the water like a silver ribbon. Everything feels calm. Yet beneath that calm lies extraordinary significance. The flood is doing its work. Minute by minute. Hour by hour. Day by day. Sediment settles. Fields absorb nutrients. The foundation for future harvests is quietly being prepared. Most of this work remains invisible. People cannot watch individual particles of soil drifting through the water. They cannot see next season's crops growing beneath the surface. Yet they trust the process, because it has sustained generations before them. And if conditions remain favorable, it will sustain generations yet to come. As you gaze across the moonlit floodwaters, you begin to appreciate a lesson that ancient Egypt teaches repeatedly. The most important things often happen slowly. Civilizations are not built in a day. Harvests do not appear overnight. Rivers reshape landscapes gradually. Year after year. Season after season. Generation after generation. The Nile continues its patient work. And tonight, all of Egypt waits for the next chapter of the cycle. The waters have arrived. Soon they will retreat. And when they do, an entirely new season of life will begin. As the floodwaters continue their slow work across the countryside, life in the village settles into a quieter rhythm. Many of the usual farming tasks have paused for the season. Fields remain underwater. The river dominates the landscape. And while people wait for the next stage of the agricultural cycle, attention turns toward other responsibilities. There is always something that needs repair. Always something that needs building. In ancient Egypt, maintenance is not an occasional task. It is a way of life. The sun wears down materials. The wind carries sand into every corner of daily existence. Floods reshape the landscape. Time itself seems determined to challenge anything humans create. As a result, villagers become skilled builders. Not because they construct enormous monuments, but because they constantly repair and improve the places where they live. One morning, your neighbor invites you to assist with expanding a family home. You gladly accept. Partly out of curiosity. Partly because helping one another is simply expected here. The project begins not in a workshop. Not in a quarry. Not in a distant forest. It begins beside the earth itself. The building material of ancient Egypt surrounds you everywhere. Mud. To modern ears, that may sound unimpressive. Perhaps even primitive. Yet as you spend more time in the village, you realize how remarkably effective this material can be. The Nile provides fertile soil for crops. But it also provides clay-rich mud for construction. Combined with straw and dried beneath the powerful Egyptian sun, that mud becomes surprisingly durable. Entire communities are built from it. You join several villages near a large mixing area. Piles of mud have already been gathered. Bundles of straw lie nearby. Workers begin combining the materials. Water is added. The mixture is stirred thoroughly. The process requires patience and effort. Everyone participates. Children help carry straw. Adults handle heavier work. Conversation flows easily. Stories are exchanged. Jokes are shared. The labor becomes a social activity as much as a practical one. Soon wooden molds appear. The mud mixture is pressed into rectangular shapes. Each mold creates a single brick. The bricks are then carefully removed and placed in rows beneath the sun. There they will dry for days. Perhaps weeks. Depending upon conditions. You walk among hundreds of newly formed bricks. The sight is impressive. Not because the individual bricks are extraordinary, but because of what they represent. Each brick is a small piece of a future home. A future wall. A future shelter. Civilization often grows from simple materials combined through collective effort. Here, that truth is impossible to ignore. As the days pass, the bricks harden steadily. The Egyptian sun performs much of the work. No massive furnaces are required. No complex machinery exists. Nature itself becomes part of the construction process. Eventually, building begins. The family whose home is being expanded already possesses a sturdy structure. The new addition will provide extra space for storage and sleeping. You help carry bricks. Others prepare mortar. Gradually, walls begin to rise. The work proceeds methodically. No one rushes. Mistakes are costly. Careful construction matters. Ancient Egyptians may not possess modern engineering textbooks, but they understand practical building techniques through generations of experience. Knowledge passes from parents to children. From neighbors to friends. From builders to apprentices. Every village contains accumulated wisdom. And that wisdom keeps homes standing year after year. As the walls grow taller, you begin noticing details you previously overlooked. Windows are relatively small. Large openings would allow excessive heat inside. Thick walls help maintain cooler temperatures. Rooms are arranged thoughtfully. Shade is valued. Airflow is valued. Comfort depends upon intelligent design rather than mechanical systems. Ancient Egyptians cannot simply turn on a fan during hot afternoons. Instead, homes themselves must help regulate temperature. Many solutions are surprisingly effective. You step inside an older house nearby to escape the midday sun. The difference is immediately noticeable. Outside, the heat feels intense. Inside, conditions are far more comfortable. The thick mud brick walls absorb heat slowly. Shade protects interior spaces. Simple architecture accomplishes what modern people often achieve through technology. The experience reminds you that intelligence takes many forms. Ancient societies may lack modern devices. That does not mean they lack practical knowledge. Quite the opposite. They often possess deep understanding of local conditions. That understanding allows them to thrive in challenging environments. As construction continues, the house slowly takes shape. Doorways appear. Storage areas are defined. Living spaces become recognizable. What began as piles of mud and straw is transforming into something meaningful. A home. A place where meals will be shared. Children will grow. Stories will be told. Generations may one day live beneath the same roof. The realization changes how you view ordinary buildings. Modern visitors often focus on Egypt's grand monuments. The pyramids. The temples. The statues. Yet most Egyptians never lived inside such structures. Their lives unfolded in homes like these. Simple. Functional. Carefully built. Homes that rarely survive thousands of years because they were never intended to. They existed to serve living families. And in that role, they succeeded remarkably well. One evening, after a long day of work, you sit atop a partially completed wall and observe the village around you. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Children chase one another through narrow pathways. Dogs wander between homes. Neighbors gather for conversation. The scene feels peaceful. Comfortable. Human. For a moment, history seems less distant. Ancient Egyptians stop feeling like figures from textbooks. Instead, they become recognizable people. People concerned with housing, family, food, work, and community. People not entirely different from those living thousands of years later. As darkness approaches, construction pauses. There will be more work tomorrow. And the day after that. Building requires patience. Another lesson frequently taught by ancient Egypt. Important things take time. Whether constructing homes, growing crops, or sustaining civilizations. Progress rarely happens all at once. It emerges gradually through consistent effort. Brick by brick. Day by day. Generation by generation. Before returning to your own home, you take one final look at the nearly completed addition. Only weeks earlier, it existed only as an idea. Now it stands solidly against the evening sky. A testament to cooperation, to knowledge, to persistence, and to the remarkable ability of ordinary people to transform Earth itself into shelter. Tonight, families throughout Egypt will sleep behind walls made from the river's mud, protected by homes built with their own hands. Homes shaped by the same Nile that feeds their crops and sustains their civilization. The river provides. The people build. And together they create a world capable of enduring for centuries. Tomorrow, another aspect of village life awaits. Because building a home is only one part of survival. A household must also be fed. And that means understanding the foods that sustain ancient Egypt. The story of bread, beer, and daily meals is about to begin. The morning begins with a familiar sound. Not the call of birds along the Nile. Not the distant voices of farmers beginning their work. Not even the braying of a donkey demanding attention. Instead, it is the steady rhythm of grinding stone against stone. A sound so common in ancient Egypt that most people barely notice it. Yet it echoes through villages across the kingdom every single day. Because before fields can be harvested, before markets can trade, and before temples can receive offerings, people must eat. And in ancient Egypt, nearly every meal begins with grain. You step outside shortly after sunrise. The village is already awake. Smoke curls gently from cooking fires. Families prepare for the day ahead. Children carry water. Neighbors exchange greetings. The scent of baking bread drifts through the cool morning air. It is a pleasant smell. Warm. Comforting. Familiar. The kind of scent that makes a place feel like home. You follow it to a nearby courtyard where several women are preparing flour. The process is labor-intensive. Large stones are used to crush grain into a fine powder. The work requires patience and strength. Hour after hour, day after day, grain must be processed before it can become food. Modern people rarely think about how much effort lies behind a simple loaf of bread. In ancient Egypt, that effort is impossible to ignore. Every meal represents labor. Someone planted the grain. Someone tended the fields. Someone harvested the crop. Someone carried it. Ground it. Mixed it. Baked it. Food is not merely purchased here. It is created through countless small acts of work. The grain most commonly used is emmer wheat. Its cultivation has supported Egyptian communities for generations. Once ground into flour, it is mixed with water to form dough. The dough is shaped carefully and placed into simple ovens. The ovens themselves are surprisingly efficient. Clay structures designed to retain heat. Their appearance may be simple, but their purpose is essential. Soon fresh bread begins to emerge. The loaves vary in size and shape. Some are round. Others are elongated. A few contain herbs or flavorings when ingredients are available. Most are plain. Yet plain bread can be remarkably satisfying when it is fresh. You accept a small piece offered by a friendly baker. The texture is different from modern bread. Denser. Heartier. But nourishing. And that is what matters most. Food in ancient Egypt is judged less by luxury and more by reliability. People need meals that sustain them through long hours of physical work. Bread accomplishes that task admirably. As the morning continues, you discover something surprising. Bread is only half the story. The second essential food of ancient Egypt is beer. To many modern listeners, that may seem unusual. Beer is often viewed as a recreational drink. Here, however, it serves a far more practical purpose. Egyptian beer differs significantly from modern varieties. It is often thick, nutritious, Sometimes more like a liquid food. Water can occasionally be unreliable depending on local conditions. Beer provides hydration along with valuable calories. For many families, it is a daily staple. A worker heading to the fields may carry bread and beer. A laborer repairing buildings may eat bread and beer. A farmer preparing tools may consume bread and beer. The combination forms the foundation of countless meals. Simple. Dependable. Effective. You spend part of the afternoon observing food preparation within several households. The variety surprises you. While bread remains central, many other foods appear regularly. Onions are common. Garlic is valued. Lentils provide nourishment. Dates offer sweetness. Figs appear when available. Fresh vegetables supplement daily meals. Fish from the Nile often plays an important role. Those fortunate enough to own livestock may occasionally enjoy meat, though it is far less common than many modern people imagine. For most families, meat remains a special occasion rather than an everyday expectation. The Nile itself contributes enormously to the food supply. Fishing boats leave early each morning. Their crews understand the river intimately. They know where fish gather. They understand seasonal patterns. Generations of experience guide their efforts. By midday, fresh catches begin arriving in the village. Some fish are eaten immediately. Others are preserved for future use. Nothing is wasted unnecessarily. Resources matter too much. As the day grows warmer, you accompany a family preparing the evening meal. The process unfolds gradually. Vegetables are cleaned. Bread is sliced. Beer is poured into clay cups. Simple dishes are arranged carefully. There is no elaborate display. No extravagant feast. Yet the meal possesses something valuable. A sense of community. Family members gather together. Neighbors occasionally join. Stories are exchanged. News is shared. The day's work is discussed. Food nourishes more than the body. It strengthens relationships. Creates traditions. Builds memories. This may be one of the most universal aspects of human civilization. Across thousands of years and countless cultures, people continue gathering around meals. The specific foods change. The customs vary. Yet the underlying purpose remains remarkably similar. Eating together helps transform groups of individuals into communities. As evening approaches, the village becomes quieter. The day's labor is finished. People relax. Children play nearby while adults converse. The setting sun paints the landscape in shades of gold and amber. Cooking fires flicker gently. The aroma of food lingers in the air. You realize that life in ancient Egypt is neither glamorous nor easy. Preparing food requires constant effort. Every meal depends upon successful harvests. Successful harvests depend upon the Nile. And the Nile depends upon forces far beyond human control. Yet despite these uncertainties, families continue cooking. Eating. Sharing. Living. Generation after generation. There is something reassuring about that continuity. Empires rise. Kings change. Temples expand. Monuments are constructed. But ordinary meals remain. Bread is baked. Beer is brewed. Families gather. Life goes on. Long after famous names are forgotten, these daily rituals continue shaping human existence. Darkness slowly settles over the village. Stars emerge overhead. The sounds of conversation gradually fade. Most people will rise early tomorrow. There is always more work waiting. Fields must eventually be planted. Boats must be repaired. Markets must be supplied. Homes must be maintained. Civilization depends upon countless ordinary tasks performed consistently over time. And every one of those tasks requires energy. Which is why, before sleep arrives, bread dough is already being prepared for tomorrow. Grain is already being measured. Plans are already being made. Because another day is coming. And another meal must be earned. As you finish the last of your bread and watch the Nile glimmer beneath the moonlight, you begin to appreciate something simple yet profound. The story of ancient Egypt is not only written in stone monuments and royal tombs. It is also written in humble loaves of bread, in shared meals, in cooking fires, and in the quiet determination of ordinary people who work each day to feed their families. Tomorrow, you will leave the familiar rhythms of home and venture into one of the most vibrant parts of Egyptian life. The village marketplace. A place where goods, stories, and people from many different backgrounds come together beside the Nile. A few days after the flood reaches its height, news spreads through the village. Market day is approaching. The announcement does not arrive through official notices. There are no posters. No public broadcasts. No schedules hanging on walls. People simply know. Word travels from neighbor to neighbor. Farmer to farmer. Boatman to merchant. Soon the entire village is preparing. Market day is more than an opportunity to acquire goods. It is one of the most important social events of the week. A chance to exchange news. Meet travelers. Hear stories from distant places. And briefly step beyond the routines of daily life. Before sunrise, the village is already awake. The air feels cool and fresh. Families gather items they hope to trade. Baskets are packed carefully. Tools are inspected. Donkeys are loaded with goods. The atmosphere contains a quiet excitement. Even children seem unusually eager to begin the day. You join a group traveling toward a larger settlement several miles away. The journey follows a familiar path along the Nile. Floodwaters still cover portions of the landscape. In some places, boats move where people normally walk. The transformed scenery remains fascinating. Sunlight dances across shallow waters. Birds gather in great numbers along the edges of newly formed wetlands. Palm trees cast long shadows across the morning light. The world feels peaceful. Yet there is also a sense of movement. Of purpose. People from many villages are heading toward the same destination. By mid-morning, the marketplace comes into view. At first, it appears as little more than a collection of tents, stalls, and temporary shelters. But as you draw closer, the scale becomes clear. Hundreds of people have gathered. Perhaps more. The sound reaches you before the details do. Voices. Laughter. Animals. Negotiations. Greetings. The marketplace hums with life. It is one of the busiest places you have seen since arriving in ancient Egypt. Entering the market feels like stepping into a different world. The quiet rhythms of village life give way to constant activity. Everywhere you look, people are buying, selling, trading, and talking. Merchants display pottery. Farmers offer grain. Fishermen present their latest catches. Craftsmen arrange tools, baskets, jewelry, and household goods. The variety is remarkable. And yet everything here exists for practical reasons. Most people are not shopping for luxury. They are seeking necessities. Items needed for work, food preparation, farming, fishing, or daily life. You walk slowly between the stalls. A potter proudly displays rows of freshly fired vessels. Some are simple storage jars. Others are carefully decorated. Each one represents hours of labor. Nearby, a basket maker demonstrates his craft. His hands move with practiced confidence. Reeds become useful objects almost effortlessly. Years of experience have transformed difficult work into a graceful routine. The marketplace reveals something often overlooked in discussions of ancient Egypt. Not everyone is a farmer. Not everyone works in the fields. Civilization depends upon specialization. Potters make pottery. Carpenters shape wood. Weavers produce cloth. Metalworkers create tools. Boat builders maintain vessels. Scribes keep records. Each occupation supports countless others. The marketplace serves as the meeting point where these different skills come together. As you continue exploring, you notice a group gathered around a storyteller. The man stands atop a small platform. His audience listens attentively. Children sit cross-legged near the front. Adults linger nearby. For a few moments, buying and selling pauses as people enjoy the performance. Stories travel alongside goods in ancient Egypt. Information moves through conversations. Through travelers. Through merchants. Through anyone willing to share what they have seen. A tale carried from one village may eventually reach another hundreds of miles away. In a world without newspapers or radio, storytelling becomes an important form of communication. Further into the market, you encounter traders who have traveled much farther than anyone in your village. Some arrive by boat from distant regions along the Nile. Others represent settlements you have never heard of. Their accents differ slightly. Their clothing varies. Their experiences are unique. Yet here they gather together. The marketplace acts as a bridge between communities. Goods are exchanged. Ideas are exchanged. Knowledge is exchanged. The result is a civilization that feels surprisingly connected despite the limitations of ancient transportation. Near midday, the market reaches its busiest point. The heat increases. Shade becomes valuable. People crowd beneath awnings and temporary shelters. Food vendors attract steady lines of customers. Fresh bread appears from portable ovens. Dates and figs are sold from woven baskets. Fish is prepared nearby. The aromas drift through the crowded pathways. Even in a place devoted to commerce, food remains central. Many important conversations occur while sharing simple food and drink. You sit beneath a shaded shelter and watch the crowd. The diversity of activity is mesmerizing. A farmer negotiates the exchange of grain for tools. A fisherman purchases new netting. A family examines pottery. Children stare curiously at colorful goods displayed by merchants. Every transaction tells a story. Every exchange reveals a need. The marketplace functions because people depend upon one another. No individual can produce everything necessary for life. Cooperation makes prosperity possible. As afternoon approaches, you encounter a scribe. Unlike most villagers, he spends much of his day reading and writing. Sheets of papyrus rest beside him. Ink and brushes are arranged carefully. To many Egyptians, literacy remains a specialized skill. The ability to record information carries significant value. Farmers may grow food. Craftsmen may create tools. Scribes preserve knowledge. Each role contributes differently to society. Watching the scribe work, you begin to appreciate how many layers support civilization. Behind every visible activity lies an invisible network of skills and responsibilities. Eventually, the crowd begins to thin. Some visitors start their journeys home. Donkeys are loaded once more. Boats prepare to depart. Unsold goods are packed away. The market gradually shifts from energetic activity toward quiet conclusion. Yet no one seems disappointed. The day has served its purpose. Goods have changed hands. Friendships have been renewed. Information has circulated. Communities have strengthened their connections. The marketplace is not merely a place of trade. It is a place of relationships. As you begin the journey back to your village, the late afternoon sun bathes the landscape in golden light. The floodwaters shimmer beside the road. Birds glide overhead. Around you, fellow travelers discuss the day's events. Some compare purchases. Others share news they have learned. Conversations continue long after the market itself has disappeared from view. The influence of the marketplace extends far beyond its physical boundaries. It accompanies people home. Back in the village, evening arrives gently. Families unpack their goods. Neighbors visit one another. New stories spread quickly. Someone has heard news from a distant town. Someone else learned of changing conditions along the river. Small pieces of information begin weaving themselves into the fabric of community life. You realize that ancient Egypt is far more interconnected than many modern people imagine. Villages may appear isolated. Travel may be slow. Yet roads, rivers, markets, and human relationships bind communities together. Information flows. Goods flow. People flow. The entire civilization functions through movement and connection. As darkness settles over the Nile, you sit quietly outside your home. The marketplace already feels distant. Yet its lessons remain fresh in your mind. Civilization is not built solely by rulers and monuments. It is built through countless exchanges between ordinary people. A basket traded for grain. A story shared with a stranger. A tool purchased for future work. Small interactions repeated thousands of times. Day after day. Year after year. These connections sustain the world around you. And soon, you will experience one of the greatest connections of all. A journey along the Nile itself. Because the river does not merely nourish Egypt. It unites it. And tomorrow, you will climb aboard a boat and discover how an entire civilization travels upon the water. The morning of your journey begins before sunrise. The village is still quiet when you wake. Most homes remain dark. Only a few cooking fires glow softly against the fading night. Above you, countless stars scatter across the sky. The air is cool and still. For a brief moment, the world seems suspended between darkness and dawn. Today, however, is not an ordinary day. Today, you will leave the village. Not forever. Not even for very long. But long enough to see ancient Egypt from a different perspective. For weeks, you have watched boats move along the Nile. Small fishing vessels. Merchant boats loaded with cargo. Passenger craft carrying travelers between communities. They glide across the water with an ease that almost seems effortless. Now you will join them. As the first hints of sunrise appear on the horizon, you make your way toward the riverbank. The boat waits where it was moored the previous evening. It is larger than many fishing boats but smaller than the massive cargo vessels that occasionally pass through the region. Its wooden hull bears the marks of long service. The sail is neatly folded. Bundles of goods are already stacked aboard. Several passengers have arrived before you. A merchant transporting pottery. A farmer visiting relatives. A craftsman seeking supplies. Each has a destination. Each has a reason for traveling. The boat itself becomes a small community. Strangers brought together by the river. The captain moves confidently about the deck. His face is weathered by years beneath the Egyptian sun. He checks ropes. Inspects cargo. Exchanges brief words with his crew. Every action suggests experience. The Nile rewards skill. And it quickly exposes carelessness. Soon the final preparations are complete. The sail is raised. Morning wind catches the fabric. The boat shifts gently. And then, almost imperceptibly, you begin moving. The village slowly recedes behind you. Mud brick homes become smaller. Palm trees blend into the landscape. Familiar landmarks fade into the distance. For the first time since arriving in ancient Egypt, you truly appreciate the scale of the Nile. From the water, the world feels larger. Broader. More connected. The river stretches ahead like an endless road. Villages appear along its banks. Fields extend outward toward the desert. Birds circle overhead. Everywhere you look, signs of life follow the course of the water. The Nile is not simply part of Egypt. It is Egypt. Without the river, none of this would exist. As the morning progresses, the landscape unfolds gradually. The pace is unhurried. No engines disturb the silence. No mechanical sounds interrupt the rhythm of the journey. Only the gentle movement of water against the hull. The creak of wood. The occasional flap of the sail. And the voices of fellow travelers. The experience feels remarkably peaceful. Travel in the ancient world is often difficult. Roads can be rough. Journeys can be exhausting. Yet movement along the Nile possesses a certain elegance. The river carries people naturally through the heart of civilization. You settle into a comfortable position and watch the shoreline drift past. Farmers work near flooded fields. Fishermen cast nets from small boats. Children wave enthusiastically from riverbanks. Livestock graze on patches of higher ground. The scenes change continuously. Yet they remain connected by familiar themes. Work. Family. Community. The daily routines that sustain human life. At mid-morning, the captain points toward a larger vessel approaching from the south. The boat is heavily loaded. Its deck crowded with cargo. Grain. Pottery. Bundles of papyrus. Perhaps other goods hidden from view. As it passes, crew members exchange greetings. The interaction is brief. Yet it reveals something important. The Nile is busy. Far busier than many future generations will imagine. Merchants travel constantly. Supplies move between settlements. Information spreads alongside trade. The river serves as both highway and marketplace. A network connecting thousands of communities. Watching the cargo vessel disappear into the distance, you begin to understand how ancient Egypt maintains its unity. The kingdom stretches across vast distances. Yet the Nile links its people together. A farmer in one region may never meet a craftsman hundreds of miles away. Nevertheless, they remain connected through trade and transportation. The river transforms separate communities into a shared civilization. Around midday, the sun climbs higher. Heat settles across the landscape. Passengers seek shade beneath simple coverings. Conversation slows. Even the river seems quieter. The crew continues working steadily. Sailing requires constant attention. Wind conditions change. Currents shift. Sandbanks appear unexpectedly. Experience matters. The captain and crew understand the Nile intimately. Their knowledge has been accumulated over years. Perhaps decades. They read the river much as a scholar reads a text. Small details reveal valuable information. Subtle changes in water color. Patterns in the current. Movements of birds. Nothing escapes their attention. As afternoon approaches, the boat stops briefly at a riverside settlement. The village is larger than your own. Boats crowd the shoreline. Merchants move cargo between docks and warehouses. The atmosphere feels energetic. Goods arrive. Goods depart. Activity never truly ceases. You step ashore for a short time. The experience reinforces something you have already begun to suspect. Ancient Egypt is not isolated. It is connected. Constantly. People travel. Trade flourishes. News circulates. The civilization remains in motion. Before long, the journey resumes. The sail catches the wind once more. Slowly, the settlement disappears behind you. New scenery takes its place. Temples rise occasionally along the river banks. Some are modest. Others more impressive. Their walls gleam beneath the sunlight. Even from a distance, they command attention. These sacred structures remind travelers that religion accompanies every aspect of Egyptian life. The gods are believed to watch over fields, rivers, harvests, and journeys alike. Offerings are made. Prayers are spoken. Gratitude is expressed. The natural and spiritual worlds remain closely intertwined. Later in the afternoon, you notice wildlife gathering near the water's edge. White birds stand motionless among reeds. Fish leap briefly above the surface. A crocodile basks on a distant bank before slipping silently into the river. The sight creates a ripple of excitement among passengers. Crocodiles command respect. They are powerful reminders that nature remains present even within highly organized civilizations. Human beings may build villages and temples. Yet the river still belongs partly to the wild. As the sun begins its descent toward the horizon, the landscape becomes increasingly beautiful. Golden light spreads across the water. Palm trees cast long shadows. The sail glows softly in the evening sun. The entire world seems painted in warm colors. Conversation among passengers grows quieter. Many simply watch. Some moments require no words. This is one of them. The Nile moves steadily beneath the boat. The same river that nourishes crops. The same river that carries merchants. The same river that supports cities and villages alike. It has performed these tasks for generations. It will continue long after the lives of everyone aboard have ended. The realization is strangely comforting. Human lives are brief. Civilizations endure longer. Rivers longer still. Yet each depends upon the others. People care for communities. Communities sustain civilizations. Civilizations grow beside rivers. Everything is connected. By the time darkness approaches, the boat reaches its destination. Lamps begin appearing along the shoreline. Reflections shimmer across the water. The journey is ending. Yet it has changed your understanding of Egypt. From the village, civilization seemed local. From the river, it appears vast. Connected. Dynamic. Alive. You step onto solid ground once more. Behind you, the boat rocks gently against its mooring. Ahead lies a new settlement waiting to be explored. New people. New stories. New experiences. The Nile has carried you farther than your feet alone ever could. And tomorrow, your travels will lead you into one of the most fascinating institutions in ancient Egypt. A temple. A place where religion, politics, learning, and daily life meet beneath towering stone walls. For now, however, the river rests beneath the stars. And so do you. The journey continues with the coming dawn. The following morning, you wake in a settlement larger than any village you have visited before. The sounds are different here. More voices. More footsteps. More activity. Even before sunrise, people are already moving through the streets. Merchants prepare their goods. Laborious begin their work. Boats arrive at the docks. The settlement feels alive in a way that smaller communities rarely do. Yet above all these activities rises a structure that commands immediate attention. A temple. Its stone walls stand high above the surrounding buildings. Massive columns catch the first light of dawn. Carefully carved images cover its surfaces. Even from a distance, the building seems designed to inspire respect. And perhaps a little awe. Throughout your journey, you have noticed that religion touches nearly every aspect of Egyptian life. Farmers pray for successful harvests. Sailors seek safe passage. Families make offerings. Festivals fill the calendar. Yet this is your first opportunity to spend significant time within a temple itself. As the morning sun brightens the sky, you join a stream of visitors heading toward the entrance. The closer you get, the more impressive the structure becomes. Every stone appears carefully placed. Every carving serves a purpose. Images of gods, kings, animals, and sacred symbols cover the walls. Some scenes depict offerings. Others celebrate victories. Still others tell stories that have been passed down through generations. The temple is not merely a building. It is a record. A monument. A center of community life. Passing through the entrance feels like entering another world. Outside, the settlement is noisy and busy. Inside, the atmosphere changes immediately. The sounds become softer. More deliberate. Footsteps echo across stone floors. Incense drifts through the air. Sunlight filters between towering columns. Everything encourages visitors to slow down. To observe. To reflect. The effect is powerful. Even those who arrive with practical concerns often find themselves speaking more quietly once they enter. You spend several moments simply looking around. The scale is remarkable. Massive columns rise toward the ceiling like stone forests. Carvings cover nearly every surface. Some have been painted in vivid colors. Reds, blues, golds. Though centuries may eventually fade them, they are still vibrant now. The temple is far more colorful than many future generations will imagine. Nearby, a priest moves calmly through the complex. His clothing is simple but carefully maintained. His manner is composed, confident, focused. Like many priests, he has spent years learning rituals, traditions, and sacred responsibilities. To outsiders, priests may appear concerned only with religion. In reality, their duties are much broader. Temples function as important institutions within Egyptian society. They oversee land, manage resources, employ workers, preserve knowledge, and support local communities. Religion and administration are deeply intertwined. As you continue exploring, you observe preparations for a daily ritual. Several priests move purposefully through a sacred area. Their actions follow a sequence refined over generations. Each movement has meaning. Each gesture carries significance. The rituals are not performed casually. They are expressions of order, of continuity, of humanity's relationship with the divine. Ancient Egyptians place enormous value on maintaining balance in the world. Rituals help reinforce that balance. To modern observers, some practices may seem unfamiliar. Yet beneath the specific details lies a universal human desire. The desire to find meaning, to create connection, to understand one's place within a larger world. As the morning progresses, visitors continue arriving. Some bring offerings. Others seek guidance. Some simply wish to participate in communal traditions. The temple welcomes a wide range of people. Farmers stand beside merchants. Craftsmen stand beside officials. Wealth varies. Occupations vary. Yet all gather within the same sacred space. In this way, the temple serves not only religious purposes but social ones as well. It creates a shared experience, a sense of belonging, a reminder that individuals are part of something larger than themselves. One section of the complex contains storerooms. The sight surprises you. You expected shrines, statues, ritual spaces. Instead, you find evidence of extensive economic activity. Grain, oil, textiles, various supplies. Temples often control significant resources. Their influence extends far beyond ceremonies. Large institutions require organization. Records must be maintained. Goods must be stored. Workers must be supervised. The temple operates almost like a small city within the larger settlement. The realization changes your understanding of Egyptian society. Religion is not isolated from daily life. It is woven directly into it. Around midday, the heat outside becomes intense. Within the temple's shaded halls, however, conditions remain relatively comfortable. Thick stone walls provide relief from the sun. Visitors linger beneath columns. Conversations continue quietly. The atmosphere encourages patience. No one appears rushed. Time seems to move differently here. The temple has stood for years. Perhaps decades. It may stand for centuries more. Human schedules feel less urgent within such surroundings. During the afternoon, you encounter several scribes working within administrative areas. Papyrus scrolls are arranged carefully. Records are copied. Inventories are maintained. Information flows continuously through the institution. The scribe's work may lack the visual drama of rituals, yet it is equally important. Civilization depends upon memory. Memory depends upon records. Records depend upon people capable of creating and preserving them. Watching the scribes, you begin to appreciate how much effort is required simply to keep society organized. Behind every visible achievement lies a network of less visible labor. As the day progresses, sunlight shifts across the stone floors. Shadows lengthen. The temple gradually becomes quieter. Visitors begin returning home. Priests complete final duties. Workers prepare for the evening. Yet the building itself seems unchanged. Calm. Steady. Enduring. It has witnessed countless days like this one. Countless visitors. Countless prayers. Countless acts of ordinary devotion. Before leaving, you pause in a courtyard and look upward. Above you, the sky stretches endlessly blue. Around you stand walls covered with stories. Stories of gods, kings, communities, generations. Together they form a reminder that human beings have always sought ways to understand the world around them. The temple is one expression of that search. Not merely a place of worship, but a place of learning, organization, community, and continuity. As evening approaches, you make your way back through the settlement. The streets remain busy. Merchants continue trading. Boats continue arriving. Families prepare meals. Daily life moves forward. Yet the temple remains visible above the rooftops. A constant presence watching over the community. You realize that much of ancient Egypt operates through institutions like this. Places where people gather, share knowledge, preserve traditions, and work together toward common goals. Civilization is not maintained by monuments alone. It is maintained by people performing their responsibilities day after day. Priests, scribes, farmers, sailors, craftsmen. Each contributes something essential. As darkness settles across the Nile, lamps begin glowing throughout the settlement. Reflections shimmer on the water. The temple stands quietly against the night sky. Tomorrow, however, the mood will change completely. The calm routines of daily worship will give way to celebration. Music will fill the streets. Crowds will gather. And you will experience one of the great festivals of ancient Egypt. A reminder that even the most hard-working civilizations need moments of joy. The first sign that a festival is approaching arrives long before the celebration itself. You notice it in conversations. In the marketplace. Along the docks. Inside homes. People speak with a little more excitement than usual. Children ask questions. Merchants make preparations. Families discuss plans. The entire settlement seems to be anticipating something. For weeks, life has followed familiar rhythms. Work in the fields. Trade along the river. Repairs to homes and boats. Religious duties. Daily responsibilities. Now, for a short time, those routines will pause. Not completely. Civilization never truly stops. Creates shared experiences. Transforms ordinary moments into memorable ones. The festival demonstrates that some aspects of human nature remain remarkably consistent across thousands of years. As the morning progresses, a procession emerges from the temple. The crowd grows quieter. Not silent, but attentive. Respectful. Participants move slowly through the streets. Priests lead portions of the ceremony. Sacred objects are carried carefully. Incense drifts through the warm air. Flowers decorate pathways. People watch with genuine interest. For many Egyptians, these processions represent more than spectacle. They reinforce shared beliefs, shared traditions, shared identities. Everyone present becomes part of something larger than themselves. The procession moves gradually through the settlement. Children sit on their parents' shoulders for a better view. Elderly villagers watch from shaded areas. Merchants temporarily abandon their stalls. Even busy workers pause to observe. The festival creates a rare moment when nearly everyone focuses on the same event. Such experiences help strengthen communities. They remind people that they belong to a collective story. Not merely individual households, but an entire civilization. By midday, the formal ceremonies begin giving way to celebration. Food vendors do excellent business. Fresh bread appears in enormous quantities. Dates and figs are distributed. Fish is prepared. Beer flows generously. The scents of cooking drift through the crowded streets. Families gather beneath temporary shelters. Friends share meals. Laughter becomes increasingly common. The atmosphere grows relaxed. Warm. Joyful. You spend time wandering among the crowds. Everywhere you look, people are talking. Storytelling seems especially popular. Travelers describe distant regions. Sailors recount memorable journeys. Farmers compare harvests. Grandparents entertain children with familiar tales. Creates shared experiences. Transforms ordinary moments into memorable ones. The festival demonstrates that some aspects of human nature remain remarkably consistent across thousands of years. As the morning progresses, a procession emerges from the temple. The crowd grows quieter. Not silent, but attentive. Respectful. Participants move slowly through the streets. Priests lead portions of the ceremony. Sacred objects are carried carefully. Incense drifts through the warm air. Flowers decorate pathways. People watch with genuine interest. For many Egyptians, these processions represent more than spectacle. They reinforce shared beliefs, shared traditions, shared identities. Everyone present becomes part of something larger than themselves. The procession moves gradually through the settlement. Children sit on their parents' shoulders for a better view. Elderly villagers watch from shaded areas. Merchants temporarily abandon their stalls. Even busy workers pause to observe. The festival creates a rare moment when nearly everyone focuses on the same event. Such experiences help strengthen communities. They remind people that they belong to a collective story. Not merely individual households, but an entire civilization. By midday, the formal ceremonies begin giving way to celebration. Food vendors do excellent business. Fresh bread appears in enormous quantities. Dates and figs are distributed. Fish is prepared. Beer flows generously. The scents of cooking drift through the crowded streets. Families gather beneath temporary shelters. Friends share meals. Laughter becomes increasingly common. The atmosphere grows relaxed. Warm. Joyful. You spend time wandering among the crowds. Everywhere you look, people are talking. Storytelling seems especially popular. Travelers describe distant regions. Sailors recount memorable journeys. Farmers compare harvests. Grandparents entertain children with familiar tales. Information spreads naturally through conversation. In many ways, festivals function as communication networks. News travels alongside celebration. Communities exchange knowledge while enjoying themselves. Near one open area, musicians attract a large audience. The performance is lively. Rhythms echo across the settlement. Some people clap along. Others sing. A few begin dancing. The sight is surprisingly moving. Historical discussions often focus on work, politics, and survival. Yet people in every era also seek enjoyment. They laugh, celebrate, dance, tell stories, fall in love, make friends. Festivals remind you that ancient people were not defined solely by hardship. They experienced joy too. Plenty of it. During the afternoon, competitions begin. Nothing especially grand. Simple contests. Games. Tests of skill. Spectators cheer enthusiastically. Friendly rivalries emerge. Victories are celebrated. Defeats are accepted with good humor. The events provide entertainment while strengthening social connections. Communities grow stronger when people spend time together outside of work. Ancient Egyptians appear to understand this instinctively. As the day continues, you notice another important aspect of the festival. Trade remains active. In fact, it may be more active than ever. Large crowds create opportunities for merchants. Goods from distant regions attract curious buyers. Craftsmen display their finest work. Visitors purchase items unavailable in their home villages. Economic activity and celebration reinforce one another. The festival supports both community spirit and practical commerce. Civilization rarely separates these things as neatly as modern observers sometimes expect. Around late afternoon, the sunlight begins to soften. Golden colors spread across the settlement. The heat becomes more comfortable. Families gather along the Nile to enjoy the evening. Boats decorated for the occasion drift across the water. Their reflections shimmer beautifully. Children chase one another near the shoreline. Elders sit together sharing memories. The entire scene feels peaceful, contented, human. You find a quiet place overlooking the river. From there, you observe the festival unfolding around you. The sounds of music continue. Conversations blend together. Laughter rises occasionally above the crowd. For a moment, you simply watch. And you realize something important. Historians often describe civilizations through statistics. Through rulers. Through wars. Through monuments. Yet civilization also consists of moments like this. A family sharing a meal. Friends reuniting. Neighbors celebrating together. Communities finding reasons to be joyful despite life's challenges. These moments rarely appear in official records. Yet they may be among the most important experiences people have. As evening deepens, lamps begin appearing throughout the settlement. Small points of light flicker against the growing darkness. The festival enters its final stage. Music becomes softer. Conversations grow calmer. Some families begin their journeys home. Others remain a little longer, reluctant to see the day end. The Nile reflects both moonlight and lamplight. The river appears almost magical. A silver ribbon connecting countless communities across Egypt. Tomorrow, ordinary routines will return. Fields will require attention. Boats will depart. Merchants will resume their work. Priests will perform daily rituals. Life will continue. But the memory of the festival will remain. A reminder that civilizations endure not only through labor and organization, but also through celebration, through shared experiences, through moments of joy that strengthen the bonds between people. As the final songs drift across the water and the stars emerge overhead, you begin the walk back toward your lodging. The streets are quieter now. The crowds are thinning. Yet a feeling of contentment remains. The festival may be ending. But another chapter of Egyptian life awaits. Because tomorrow you will meet a group of people whose work helps hold the entire civilization together. The scribes. The readers. The writers. The keepers of memory. And through them, you will discover how knowledge travels through the ancient world. The morning after the festival feels unusually quiet. The crowds have disappeared. The music has faded. Visitors who arrived from distant villages have begun their journeys home. The settlement gradually returns to its familiar rhythm. Merchants reopen their stalls. Boats resume their schedules. Workers return to their duties. Life moves forward. Yet traces of the celebration remain. People continue discussing memorable moments. Stories from the festival spread through conversations. Laughter occasionally returns as someone recalls a particularly amusing event. The festival may be over, but its memory lingers. Today, however, your attention is drawn toward a very different part of Egyptian society. Not the farmers who cultivate the fields. Not the sailors who navigate the Nile. Not the craftsmen who shape wood, clay, and stone. Instead, you will spend time with people whose tools are entirely different. Their most valuable possessions are not plows or boats. They are brushes, ink, papyrus, and knowledge. You are about to enter the world of the scribes. As the sun rises higher, you make your way toward an administrative building near the temple complex. The structure lacks the dramatic appearance of the temple itself. Its walls are simpler, its decorations more modest. Yet what happens inside may be just as important. Civilization depends upon memory. And memory, on a large scale, requires records. Someone must track harvests. Someone must record taxes. Someone must organize supplies. Someone must preserve knowledge. That responsibility often falls to scribes. Inside the building, the atmosphere is calm and orderly. Several men sit at low desks. Papyrus scrolls are stacked neatly nearby. Small containers hold ink. Brushes rest carefully beside writing materials. The room is quiet except for the occasional sound of writing. Compared to the noise of marketplaces and docks, the difference is striking. Work here relies upon concentration, patience, precision. A scribe begins copying information onto a fresh sheet of papyrus. You watch closely. Every movement appears deliberate. The brush glides across the surface. Symbols emerge one by one. The process is surprisingly elegant. Writing in ancient Egypt is more than communication. It is also an art. The characters themselves possess a visual beauty. Some represent sounds. Others represent ideas. Together they create a system capable of preserving information across generations. For most people in Egypt, these symbols remain mysterious. Literacy is not widespread. The ability to read and write requires years of study. As a result, scribes occupy a respected position within society. They perform tasks that few others can. Watching them work, it becomes clear why their skills are valued so highly. One nearby scribe is reviewing records related to grain storage. Another is maintaining inventories. A third copies older texts to ensure their preservation. Every task contributes to the smooth functioning of the community. Without records, confusion would quickly emerge. Supplies would be misplaced. Agreements forgotten. Resources mismanaged. Writing creates continuity. It allows knowledge to survive beyond a single lifetime. The idea feels almost magical. Human memory is limited. People forget details. Stories change. Experiences fade. Yet writing captures information and carries it forward. A thought recorded today may still exist decades later. Perhaps centuries later. The realization helps explain why scribes are sometimes called the keepers of memory. Their work extends far beyond administration. They help preserve civilization itself. Later in the morning, you are shown how papyrus is made. The process begins with a plant that grows abundantly near the Nile. Its tall green stalks are harvested carefully. The outer layers are removed. Thin strips from the inner stem are arranged in overlapping patterns. Additional layers are placed on top. Pressure is applied. Time passes. Gradually, the separate pieces bond together. The result is a writing surface both practical and surprisingly durable. Papyrus plays an enormous role in Egyptian life. Records, letters, religious texts, official documents, all depend upon it. Without papyrus, information would be much harder to preserve and transport. The humble plant contributes quietly to the operation of an entire civilization. As midday approaches, you visit a place where young students are learning the craft of writing. The atmosphere is very different from the calm efficiency of the scribes' offices. Here, concentration is mixed with frustration. Practice sheets are scattered across desks. Students repeat symbols again and again. Teachers provide corrections. Mistakes are common. Learning to write is difficult. The system contains hundreds of signs. Mastery requires dedication. Many students spend years developing their skills. You watch one young learner carefully copying characters onto a practice surface. His expression reveals intense concentration. Every symbol matters. Every detail must be correct. The work is demanding. Yet the rewards can be significant. Successful scribes often enjoy opportunities unavailable to many others. Education opens doors. That truth remains familiar even thousands of years later. Throughout the afternoon, you continue observing the scribe's work. Some prepare official correspondence. Others maintain records connected to trade. Several are copying older documents. The range of responsibilities is impressive. Writing touches nearly every aspect of Egyptian society. Agriculture, religion, commerce, government, construction. The more you learn, the more obvious it becomes that civilization depends upon information just as much as it depends upon food. Fields feed bodies. Knowledge guides actions. Both are necessary. Neither can be neglected. One elderly scribe shows you a collection of older texts. His hands move carefully as he handles the documents. The respect he displays is unmistakable. These texts contain wisdom gathered over generations. Observations, instructions, stories, records. Each represents countless hours of work. Each helps bridge the gap between past and present. You realize that many of the things future historians will know about ancient Egypt survive because people like this chose to write them down. Without scribes, much of the ancient world would vanish into silence. Their work becomes a conversation across time. A message carried forward from one generation to the next. As the afternoon sunlight begins to soften, activity gradually slows. Documents are organized. Supplies are stored. Workspaces are cleaned. The scribes prepare to end another productive day. Yet their influence continues long after they leave. Records remain. Knowledge remains. Memory remains. Outside, the settlement continues its ordinary routines. Boats travel the Nile. Merchants conduct business. Families prepare evening meals. Most people may never think much about the scribes working quietly behind administrative walls. Yet their efforts support nearly everything around them. Civilization often depends upon unseen labor. The people receiving the most attention are not always the people performing the most essential work. The scribes understand this. Their reward is not fame. It is usefulness. A message carried forward from one generation to the next. As the afternoon sunlight begins to soften, activity gradually slows. Documents are organized. Supplies are stored. Workspaces are cleaned. The scribes prepare to end another productive day. Yet their influence continues long after they leave. Records remain. Knowledge remains. Memory remains. Outside, the settlement continues its ordinary routines. Boats travel the Nile. Merchants conduct business. Families prepare evening meals. Most people may never think much about the scribes working quietly behind administrative walls. Yet their efforts support nearly everything around them. Civilization often depends upon unseen labor. The people receiving the most attention are not always the people performing the most essential work. The scribes understand this. Their reward is not fame. It is usefulness. As evening arrives, you walk beside the Nile once more. The river glows beneath the setting sun. Birds cross the sky. The day's heat begins to fade. You reflect on everything you have learned. Farmers grow food. Sailors move goods. Craftsmen create tools. Priests maintain traditions. And scribes preserve knowledge. Each role matters. Each contributes to the larger whole. Ancient Egypt is not sustained by pharaohs alone. It is sustained by networks of ordinary people performing specialized tasks with care and dedication. The realization deepens your appreciation for the civilization around you. Great societies are not built solely through grand achievements. They are built through countless acts of competence repeated every day. Tomorrow, you will encounter another important aspect of Egyptian life. One that few people enjoy discussing, yet everyone must face. Taxes. The collection of grain, resources, and labor that help support temples, officials, public works, and the kingdom itself. It may not sound exciting, but it reveals something fundamental about how civilizations actually function. Unlike many things in ancient Egypt, the reality is more interesting than you might expect. The word taxes rarely inspires excitement. Even in ancient Egypt. If you were to ask the farmers of your village whether they eagerly await tax season, most would probably laugh. A few might groan. Others would simply shake their heads. Some things, it seems, never change. And yet, as you are beginning to discover, taxes tell an important story. Not merely about money, but about civilization itself. Because temples do not maintain themselves. Roads do not appear on their own. Officials do not work without support. Boats transporting government supplies require crews. Storehouses require workers. Public projects require resources. Large societies need systems. And systems need funding. In ancient Egypt, that funding often comes in the form of grain. The morning begins with unusual activity. Several officials have arrived from a nearby administrative center. Their appearance immediately attracts attention. Not because they are feared, though some villagers are certainly nervous, but because everyone understands why they have come. Tax collection has begun. You join a small group walking toward the edge of the settlement. Ahead, several scribes prepare their materials. Papyrus sheets are organized. Ink containers are arranged carefully. Measuring tools are inspected. The entire process appears surprisingly orderly. This is not a chaotic event. It is a routine part of life. One that has occurred countless times before. The officials know their responsibilities. The villagers know theirs. The process begins with grain. Lots of grain. Although modern governments collect taxes in currency, ancient Egypt often relies upon agricultural products. Grain is valuable, reliable, easy to store, and essential for survival. A successful harvest produces food not only for individual families but also for the broader society. A portion of that harvest supports institutions throughout the kingdom. You watch as workers carefully measure stored grain. The procedures are deliberate. Accuracy matters. Records must be maintained. Amounts must be verified. Scribes document everything. Their brushes move steadily across papyrus. Numbers become records. Records become administration. Administration becomes government. The chain is remarkably straightforward when viewed up close. For many villagers, tax day is not particularly dramatic. It is simply another obligation. Like repairing a roof, maintaining irrigation channels, or preparing fields for planting. Not necessarily enjoyable, but necessary. Most people understand the basic principle. Communities benefit from shared resources. Shared resources require contributions. The balance is not always perfect. Disagreements certainly occur. Yet the system persists because it serves practical purposes. As the morning progresses, you accompany an official inspecting nearby storage facilities. The structures are impressive. Large quantities of grain can be preserved here for extended periods. The scale reminds you that ancient Egypt operates on levels far beyond any individual village. Food collected in one region may eventually support workers elsewhere. Resources move through networks connecting distant communities. The kingdom functions because supplies can be gathered, stored, and distributed. Without organization, such coordination would be impossible. The officials understand this. The scribes understand this. Even many farmers understand it. Civilization depends upon cooperation on a massive scale. By midday, the sun is high overhead. Work continues despite the heat. Measurements are checked. Records are reviewed. Questions are answered. The atmosphere remains professional. Most interactions are routine. Years of experience have refined the process. The officials are not inventing procedures as they go. They are following systems developed over generations. The realization highlights something important about ancient Egypt. From the outside, ancient civilizations can appear mysterious. Yet much of daily life is surprisingly practical. People solve problems, develop methods, create organizations, and improve them over time. Human beings 3,000 years ago are not fundamentally different from those living today. They face many of the same challenges. They simply use different tools. Later in the afternoon, one of the scribes allows you to observe his records more closely. Columns of information fill the papyrus. Amounts, names, locations, dates. The details may seem mundane. Yet together they create a picture of an entire society. Every entry represents real people, real fields, real harvests, real work. History is often remembered through kings and monuments. But civilizations are actually composed of countless records like these. Small pieces of information that allow large systems to function. Without them, administration becomes impossible. The scribe works patiently. His concentration never wavers. Watching him, you realize that taxation is ultimately a story about information. The grain itself matters. But knowing how much grain exists matters too. Knowledge allows planning. Planning allows stability. Stability allows civilization to endure. As the day begins winding down, wagons and boats prepare to transport collected supplies. The movement of resources fascinates you. Grain harvested by farmers may travel far beyond its place of origin. Some will support temples. Some may feed workers on construction projects. Some may be stored against future shortages. The system is not perfect. No human system ever is. Yet it demonstrates an impressive level of organization. Ancient Egypt is not simply a collection of isolated villages. It is a network. Connected through administration, trade, transportation, and shared institutions. Taxation helps maintain those connections. By late afternoon, most of the work is complete. The officials review final records. Scribes organize documents. Villagers return to their normal routines. The tension that accompanied the morning has largely disappeared. Life moves forward. Children play near the river. Fishermen prepare nets. Families begin cooking evening meals. Tax day becomes another event added to the long memory of the community. As the sun lowers toward the horizon, you sit beside the Nile and reflect on everything you have observed. It would be easy to view taxes as nothing more than an obligation. Yet the reality is more complicated. Taxes reveal how civilizations transform individual effort into collective achievements. A farmer grows grain. Many farmers grow grain. Portions of that grain support larger projects. Those projects benefit broader communities. The cycle continues. Cooperation expands outward. Village becomes region. Region becomes kingdom. Kingdom becomes civilization. The process is rarely dramatic. It happens gradually. Through records. Through storage. Through administration. Through countless ordinary decisions. Like so many aspects of ancient Egypt, its success depends not upon miracles but upon organization. The more time you spend here, the more you notice this pattern. Beneath every monument lies planning. Beneath every institution lies cooperation. Beneath every achievement lies ordinary work performed consistently over time. Darkness slowly settles across the river. Lamps appear in distant homes. Reflections shimmer on the water. Another day has ended. Another lesson has been learned. Civilization is not sustained solely by inspiration. It is sustained by systems. And systems depend upon people willing to participate in them. Tomorrow, your attention will return to the fields. The floodwaters are beginning to retreat. Fresh soil covers the land. Farmers are preparing for one of the most important periods of the entire year. Planting season. The moment when hope is placed into the earth itself. And where the future harvest begins. For many weeks, the Nile has dominated the landscape. Its floodwaters spread across fields. Paths disappeared beneath shallow lakes. Boats traveled where people once walked. The river transformed the countryside into something almost unrecognizable. Now, slowly and patiently, that transformation begins to reverse. The waters are retreating. At first, the change is difficult to notice. A few inches here. A little more exposed ground there. A familiar tree trunk emerging from the flood. Nothing dramatic. Nothing sudden. Yet day by day, the river withdraws. And as it does, Egypt prepares for one of the most important seasons of the year. The season of planting. You wake before sunrise and walk toward the fields. The air feels cooler now. The intense heat of summer has softened slightly. A faint mist hangs above portions of the landscape. Birds move through reeds along the river banks. The world feels calm. Expectant. As though everyone is waiting for something. In many ways, they are. The future harvest begins now. The decisions made during the coming weeks will influence the entire year ahead. As dawn spreads across the horizon, you finally see what the flood has left behind. The soil is unlike anything you have encountered before. Dark. Rich. Almost black in places. The contrast with the surrounding desert is striking. Beyond the fertile zone, sand stretches toward distant horizons. Dry and unforgiving. Yet here, beside the Nile, the earth seems alive. The flood has delivered its gift. Nutrient-rich sediment carried from distant regions now blankets the fields. For generations, Egyptians have relied upon this cycle. The river floods. The soil is renewed. Seeds are planted. Crops grow. Harvest arrives. Then the process begins again. Simple. Reliable. Powerful. A farmer named Hori, whom you met months earlier, stands near the edge of his land. He surveys the soil with obvious satisfaction. Like many experienced farmers, he can read the landscape in ways you cannot. He notices moisture levels. Texture. Signs of future fertility. Details invisible to less practiced eyes. Years of observation have taught him how to interpret the earth itself. For Hori and countless others, this is a moment of optimism. The flood appears to have been favorable. The soil looks healthy. Conditions seem promising. Nothing is guaranteed. Agriculture never offers certainty. Yet hope feels justified. Soon the work begins. Families spread across the fields. Tools emerge from storage. Animals are brought forward. The peaceful landscape fills with activity. What was recently underwater now becomes a workplace. Everywhere you look, people are preparing the land. The process is surprisingly organized. Ancient agriculture may lack modern machinery, but it does not lack efficiency. Generations of experience have refined these methods. Workers know exactly what must be done. Tasks are distributed naturally. Everyone contributes. Children help where they can. Adults handle more demanding labor. The entire community becomes involved. You spend part of the morning assisting with preparations. The work is physical. The soil is soft from the recent flood. Footsteps leave clear impressions. Tools sink easily into the earth. Sweat appears quickly despite the cool start to the day. Farming in ancient Egypt requires effort. A great deal of effort. Modern people often underestimate how much labor lies behind food production. Here, that labor is impossible to ignore. Every future loaf of bread begins in fields like these. Every harvest begins with planting. And every planting season begins with hard work. As the sun rises higher, sowing begins. Seeds are scattered carefully across prepared ground. The act itself appears simple. Almost ordinary. Yet it carries profound significance. Each seed represents possibility. Potential. A small investment in the future. Farmers cannot know exactly how many plants will emerge. They cannot predict every challenge. They can only perform their part of the process and trust the natural world to do the rest. There is something deeply human about that relationship. Across thousands of years, people have continued placing seeds into soil and hoping for growth. The tools change. The technology changes. The hope remains remarkably similar. Later in the day, you observe workers guiding animals across newly planted fields. The animals help press seeds into the earth. The technique is practical and effective. Again, you are reminded that ancient societies possess extensive knowledge. Their methods may appear simple from a distance. Closer inspection reveals sophistication built through centuries of experience. These are not random practices. They are solutions refined through observation and repetition. The fields gradually transform. What began as bare soil now contains the beginnings of future crops. The changes are subtle. Nothing dramatic is visible yet. No green shoots break through the surface. No harvest appears. Only seeds hidden beneath the earth. But everyone understands what those seeds represent. The promise of food. The promise of stability. The promise of another year of life. Around midday, workers pause briefly to rest. Bread is shared. Beer is distributed. Conversations drift between practical concerns and personal stories. The atmosphere feels cooperative. No one farms entirely alone. Neighbors help one another. Knowledge is exchanged. Advice is offered. The success of individual households contributes to the success of the broader community. Agriculture becomes a shared effort. As the afternoon continues, the scale of Egypt's dependence upon farming becomes increasingly clear. Every temple, every market, every boat crew, every scribe, every craftsman, every official, all ultimately depend upon the work happening in fields like these. The realization changes how you view the landscape. These are not merely farms. They are the foundation of civilization. Without successful harvests, everything else begins to weaken. Food supports every other activity. It allows specialization, trade, construction, learning, religion, governance. Remove agriculture, and the entire structure begins to collapse. Ancient Egyptians understand this instinctively. Farmers may not enjoy the prestige of priests or officials. Yet everyone recognizes their importance. The kingdom survives because the fields produce. As evening approaches, the pace of work slows. The sun descends toward the horizon. Golden light spreads across the countryside. Freshly planted fields stretch in every direction. The landscape feels full of potential. Though little is visible on the surface, enormous change has already begun. Beneath the soil, seeds wait. Moisture surrounds them. Life prepares to emerge. The future harvest has taken its first steps. Farmers gather their tools. Animals are led home. Families begin returning to their villages. Another productive day has ended. Yet planting season will continue for many days to come. Agriculture rewards patience. Nothing grows overnight. Success belongs to those willing to work steadily and wait. As you walk back toward the settlement, the Nile glows beneath the evening sky. The river appears calmer now. Its great flood has passed. Its work is complete. The fields have received their nourishment. The next stage belongs to the farmers. ND repetition. The fields gradually transform. What began as bare soil now contains the beginnings of future crops. The changes are subtle. Nothing dramatic is visible yet. No green shoots break through the surface. No harvest appears. Only seeds hidden beneath the earth. But everyone understands what those seeds represent. The promise of food. The promise of stability. The promise of another year of life. Around midday, workers pause briefly to rest. Bread is shared. Beer is distributed. Conversations drift between practical concerns and personal stories. The atmosphere feels cooperative. No one farms entirely alone. Neighbors help one another. Knowledge is exchanged. Advice is offered. The success of individual households contributes to the success of the broader community. Agriculture becomes a shared effort. As the afternoon continues, the scale of Egypt's dependence upon farming becomes increasingly clear. Every temple, every market, every boat crew, every scribe, every craftsman, every official, all ultimately depend upon the work happening in fields like these. The realization changes how you view the landscape. These are not merely farms. They are the foundation of civilization. Without successful harvests, everything else begins to weaken. Food supports every other activity. It allows specialization, trade, construction, learning, religion, governance. Remove agriculture, and the entire structure begins to collapse. Ancient Egyptians understand this instinctively. Farmers may not enjoy the prestige of priests or officials. Yet everyone recognizes their importance. The kingdom survives because the fields produce. As evening approaches, the pace of work slows. The sun descends toward the horizon. Golden light spreads across the countryside. Freshly planted fields stretch in every direction. The landscape feels full of potential. Though little is visible on the surface, enormous change has already begun. Beneath the soil, seeds wait. Moisture surrounds them. Life prepares to emerge. The future harvest has taken its first steps. Farmers gather their tools. Animals are led home. Families begin returning to their villages. Another productive day has ended. Yet planting season will continue for many days to come. Agriculture rewards patience. Nothing grows overnight. Success belongs to those willing to work steadily and wait. As you walk back toward the settlement, the Nile glows beneath the evening sky. The river appears calmer now. Its great flood has passed. Its work is complete. The fields have received their nourishment. The next stage belongs to the farmers. Looking across the landscape, you feel a quiet sense of admiration. Generations of Egyptians have repeated this cycle. Flood, planting, growth, harvest. Again and again. Century after century. The process may seem ordinary. Yet it sustains one of history's most remarkable civilizations. Tomorrow, you will leave the fields behind for a time and travel into the desert itself. Beyond the fertile ribbon of the Nile lies a very different world. A world of stone, sand, caravans, and distant horizons. A place that reminds every Egyptian just how precious the river truly is. For months, your life in ancient Egypt has revolved around the Nile. Every journey has followed its banks. Every village has depended upon its waters. Every field has owed its fertility to its annual flood. The river has become so familiar that it is easy to forget something important. Egypt is not mostly green. Egypt is mostly desert. The fertile land that supports millions of people forms only a narrow ribbon through an immense landscape of sand and stone. Most Egyptians rarely travel far from the river. They have little reason to. Food grows near the Nile. Trade follows the Nile. Communities cluster beside the Nile. Beyond that narrow strip lies a very different world. A world you are about to visit. The opportunity arrives when a small caravan prepares to travel toward a remote outpost in the desert. The journey is not especially long. Only a few days. Yet it will take you farther from the river than you have ever been. As dawn breaks, the group gathers outside the settlement. Several donkeys carry supplies. Water jars are inspected carefully. Food is packed. Tools are checked. The preparations seem unusually thorough. Soon you understand why. In the desert, mistakes are costly. A forgotten tool can be inconvenient near the Nile. A forgotten water jar can become a serious problem far from it. The caravan leader is an experienced traveler. His face is deeply weathered by years beneath the sun. He moves with calm confidence. The desert does not reward overconfidence. It rewards preparation, patience, attention, qualities he appears to possess in abundance. Shortly after sunrise, the journey begins. At first, the landscape changes gradually. Fields become less common. Palm trees appear less frequently. The green world of the Nile begins to fade. The transition is subtle but unmistakable. Every mile carries you farther from the river's influence and closer to the true nature of Egypt. By mid-morning, the difference becomes dramatic. Vegetation grows sparse. The earth turns increasingly dry. The horizon expands. Villages disappear. The world feels larger, more open, more silent. You stop briefly atop a rocky rise and look back toward the Nile Valley. In the distance, a thin strip of green cuts through the landscape. Beyond it lies desert. On both sides. Endless desert. For the first time, you truly understand how extraordinary the Nile is. Without it, this entire region would be nearly uninhabitable. The river does not simply improve life. It makes life possible. The caravan continues. Footsteps crunch against gravel and stone. The pace is steady, unhurried. Travelers conserve energy. The sun grows stronger as the day progresses. Shade becomes precious. Whenever a rocky outcrop offers relief, the group pauses briefly. No one wastes effort unnecessarily. The desert teaches efficiency. As the hours pass, you begin noticing details you might have overlooked before. The landscape is not empty. It only appears empty at first glance. Different types of stone create subtle patterns across the terrain. Small plants cling stubbornly to life in sheltered areas. Birds occasionally cross the sky. Tracks reveal the passage of animals. Life exists here. It is simply less visible, less abundant, more resilient. The realization feels appropriate. Everything in the desert must work harder to survive. Around midday, the caravan stops beneath a rocky cliff. The shade feels wonderful. Water is distributed carefully. Everyone drinks, but no one wastes a drop. The difference between life near the Nile and life in the desert becomes impossible to ignore. Along the river, water is a constant presence. Here, it becomes something else. A resource. A responsibility. A treasure. The travelers treat every container with respect. Generations of experience have taught them the value of caution. As you rest, the caravan leader shares stories of longer journeys. Trade expeditions. Mining operations. Remote settlements. His experiences reveal an Egypt far larger than the villages and towns you have visited. Resources found in the desert contribute to the kingdom's prosperity. Stone for monuments. Minerals. Precious materials. The desert may appear barren, yet it plays an important role in Egyptian life. Civilization extends beyond the riverbanks. The kingdom depends upon many different landscapes working together. By late afternoon, the outpost finally appears. At first, it seems almost impossible. A cluster of buildings surrounded by emptiness. A small island of human activity in a sea of stone. Yet as you approach, signs of life become clearer. Workers move between structures. Animals rest in shaded areas. Smoke rises from cooking fires. The settlement is modest. Practical. Built for function rather than beauty. Its existence depends upon careful planning. Every supply must be transported. Every resource must be managed. Nothing can be taken for granted. The people living here possess a different perspective from those beside the Nile. They understand isolation, distance, scarcity. Yet they also understand cooperation. No one survives alone in places like this. Communities depend upon one another. The lesson feels familiar. You have encountered it repeatedly throughout your journey. Civilization succeeds when people work together. The principle remains true whether one lives beside a fertile river or deep within the desert. As evening approaches, the heat finally begins to fade. The transformation is remarkable. What was oppressive during the afternoon becomes comfortable, then cool. The desert changes quickly after sunset. You climb a nearby ridge and watch the fading light spread across the landscape. The view is breathtaking. The sky glows with shades of gold, orange, and crimson. Shadows stretch across the rocky terrain. The silence feels profound. Unlike the Nile Valley, where water, animals, and people create constant sound, the desert possesses long moments of stillness. Not empty silence. Peaceful silence. The kind that encourages reflection. As darkness falls, the stars begin to appear. One by one. Then hundreds. Then thousands. Without city lights, the night sky reveals itself in extraordinary detail. The Milky Way stretches overhead like a pale river of light. Many travelers pause simply to look upward. No one seems in a hurry to return indoors. The view is too beautiful. Too rare. Sitting beneath the stars, you think about everything you have learned. The Nile often receives most of the attention when people discuss ancient Egypt. And rightly so. The river sustains the civilization. Yet the desert teaches important lessons as well. It teaches humility, preparation, patience, and appreciation. Only after leaving the fertile valley do you fully understand how precious that valley truly is. Sometimes distance creates clarity. The desert provides exactly that. Tomorrow, the caravan will begin its return journey. You will travel back toward the green world of fields and villages. Back toward the river. Back toward the communities that depend upon its waters. And as you return, you will discover that your year in ancient Egypt is slowly approaching its final season. The harvest is drawing near. The crops are growing. The work of countless hands is beginning to bear fruit. Soon, all of Egypt will learn whether the year's hopes have been rewarded. The season of harvest awaits. When you first arrived in ancient Egypt, the Nile was rising. Floodwaters spread across the land. Farmers watched the river carefully. Villages prepared for another year in the endless cycle of life beside the water. Now, many months later, that cycle is reaching one of its most important moments. Harvest season has arrived. The seeds planted after the flood have grown. The fields have changed from dark soil to vibrant green. And now, beneath the warm Egyptian sun, they have turned gold. Across the Nile Valley, crops sway gently in the breeze. The sight is beautiful. But to the people of Egypt, it means far more than beauty. It means food, security, survival. The harvest will help determine whether families prosper in the coming year. Whether storehouses remain full. Whether communities remain stable. Everything depends upon what happens now. You wake before sunrise on the first day of harvesting. The village is already stirring. Lamps glow inside homes. Voices carry through the darkness. Tools are being gathered. Meals are prepared. There is a sense of purpose everywhere. The work ahead is enormous. Every available hand will be needed. As dawn spreads across the horizon, people begin moving toward the fields. The landscape glows softly beneath the early morning light. Golden crops stretch in every direction. Months of labor stand ready to be collected. The sight fills many farmers with pride. And perhaps a little relief. For all the uncertainty of planting season, the harvest provides answers. The crops have survived. The fields have produced. The year has been kind. Soon the work begins. Workers spread across the fields carrying simple harvesting tools. The process is surprisingly methodical. Stalk by stalk. Bundle by bundle. The grain is cut and gathered. There is no machinery. No engines. Only human effort. Yet the scale of activity is impressive. Entire families work together. Neighbors assist one another. The harvest becomes a communal undertaking. No single household could easily manage such a task alone. Cooperation makes success possible. The rhythm of the work is almost hypnotic. Cut. Gather. Bundle. Repeat. Again and again. Hour after hour. The movement spreads across the fields like a carefully choreographed performance. Everyone understands their role. Everyone contributes. Children help where they can. Older workers share experience and guidance. The community functions as a single unit. Watching them, you realize that the harvest is not merely an agricultural event. It is a social one. A moment when relationships become visible through action. Around mid-morning, the fields fill with conversation. Workers exchange stories. Jokes travel from group to group. Laughter appears unexpectedly. The labor is demanding, but people find ways to make it enjoyable. This too feels familiar. Throughout history, human beings have discovered that shared work becomes easier when accompanied by companionship. The harvest strengthens social bonds just as surely as it fills storehouses. As the sun climbs higher, the pace continues. The heat becomes intense. Sweat darkens clothing. Muscles ache. Yet few people complain. The importance of the task is too obvious. Every bundle of grain represents future meals. Future security. Future opportunities. The effort invested today will support life for months to come. Nothing could be more worthwhile. You pause briefly atop a small rise overlooking the fields. From there, the scale of the harvest becomes clear. Workers move across the landscape in every direction. Carts transport gathered grain. Animals assist with hauling. The entire valley seems alive with activity. The scene reveals something essential about ancient Egypt. This civilization is not powered primarily by kings or monuments. It is powered by ordinary people working together. The harvest makes that reality impossible to ignore. Around midday, workers gather beneath temporary shelters for a meal. Bread is shared. Beer is distributed. Conversations continue. The mood is positive. Optimistic. The harvest appears strong. Storehouses should remain well supplied. Families should have enough to eat. The relief is noticeable. Agriculture always contains uncertainty. A successful harvest reduces that uncertainty. For a little while, people can breathe more easily. After the meal, work resumes. New sections of the fields are harvested. Bundles accumulate steadily. Soon they are transported to areas where grain will be separated and processed. The work does not end when crops are cut. Harvesting is only one step in a larger process. The grain must be prepared for storage. Protected from moisture. Guarded against pests. Organized carefully. Again, civilization reveals itself as a network of connected tasks. Every stage depends upon the success of the stage before it. Throughout the afternoon, you help where you can. The labor leaves your arms sore and your clothes covered in dust. For perhaps the first time, you gain a true appreciation for the physical effort behind a loaf of bread. Modern life often hides the origins of food. Ancient Egypt does not. The connection between labor and nourishment remains visible. Direct. Immediate. Every meal tells a story of work. As evening approaches, the pace finally begins to slow. The first day of harvesting is ending. Large portions of the fields have already been cleared. Piles of grain stand ready for transport. Workers gather their tools. Some sit quietly, exhausted but satisfied. Others continue talking animatedly about yields and plans for the coming weeks. The atmosphere combines fatigue with accomplishment. The kind of satisfaction that follows meaningful effort. The setting sun bathes the fields in golden light. For a moment, the harvested land seems almost as beautiful as it was before. Different, but equally impressive. The crops that once waved in the breeze have become food for the future. Potential has become reality. Months of hope have become tangible results. As darkness begins to settle, you walk back toward the village. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Families prepare evening meals. Children play despite the long day. Life continues. Yet beneath the ordinary routines lies a quiet sense of gratitude. The harvest is succeeding. The fields have delivered their promise. The year has rewarded patience and labor. Sitting beside the Nile that evening, you watch the river flow past beneath the fading sky. The same river that brought the flood. The same river that renewed the soil. The same river that made the harvest possible. Every stage of the year has led to this moment. Flood. Planting. Growth. Harvest. The cycle feels complete. And yet it is never truly complete. Soon preparations for the next year will begin. The Nile will rise again. The fields will be renewed again. The work will continue. Generation after generation. That continuity may be the greatest achievement of all. Empires rise and fall. Rulers come and go. But ordinary people continue planting seeds, harvesting crops, and caring for their communities. The civilization endures because they endure. Tomorrow, however, your attention will turn toward something more personal. For your year in ancient Egypt is beginning to draw to a close. And as the season changes once more, you will find yourself reflecting on everything you have seen. The journey home is approaching. The year has passed more quickly than you expected. When you first arrived in ancient Egypt, everything felt unfamiliar. The Nile seemed vast and mysterious. The villages appeared strange. The customs, the clothing, the food, the language, all belonged to a world separated from your own by thousands of years. Now, as you prepare to leave, those same things feel remarkably familiar. The river no longer seems mysterious. It feels comforting. The villages feel welcoming. The rhythms of daily life have become almost predictable. You know when farmers rise. You know how markets unfold. You know the sound of boats moving through morning mist and the sight of evening sunlight reflecting across the Nile. Ancient Egypt has become, in its own way, a temporary home. And saying goodbye is harder than you expected. The decision to begin your return journey arrives shortly after the harvest. The busiest season has passed. Storehouses are filling. Fields are quieting. Communities are settling into a more relaxed rhythm. It feels like the right moment to leave. Not because there is nothing left to learn. Far from it. A lifetime would not be enough to understand every part of this civilization. But because the story of your year is approaching its natural conclusion. As dawn breaks on your final morning in the settlement, you take one last walk beside the river. The Nile flows steadily as always. Unconcerned with arrivals or departures. Unconcerned with individual lives. The river simply continues. As it has for thousands of years. As it will for thousands more. You pause for a moment and watch fishermen preparing their nets. The scene is familiar. Almost ordinary now. Yet that familiarity itself feels significant. At the beginning of your journey, every sight demanded explanation. Now many scenes require none. You understand their place within the larger picture. That understanding is the true gift of travel. Not merely seeing new places, but learning how they fit together. Soon your small group begins moving northward. The journey follows routes you have traveled before. Past fields recently harvested. Past villages where children wave from river banks. Past marketplaces filled with activity. The landscapes feel different now. Not because they have changed, but because you have. You notice details that would once have escaped your attention. An irrigation canal carefully maintained by local farmers. A ferry transporting goods across the river. Workers repairing a boat. Everywhere you look, evidence of cooperation appears. Evidence of systems functioning quietly in the background. You understand now that these small activities are what truly sustain civilization. The grand monuments may attract attention, but ordinary work keeps society alive. During the journey, you revisit several places that played important roles throughout the year. A marketplace where you first witnessed the energy of Egyptian trade. A temple where priests balanced spiritual and practical responsibilities. Fields where seeds were planted months ago, now harvested and resting. Each location feels connected to memories. And each memory contributes to a larger lesson. No single experience explains ancient Egypt. Only together do they create a complete picture. One evening, your group stops near a familiar village. The setting sun casts long shadows across the landscape. Children chase one another between homes. Families prepare meals. Smoke rises from cooking fires. The scene resembles countless evenings you have witnessed throughout the year. Yet tonight, everything feels more meaningful. Perhaps because you know it will not last. Travel has a way of sharpening appreciation. Things often become most precious when we know we must leave them behind. After dinner, you sit quietly with several villagers. Conversation drifts naturally from topic to topic. Harvests. Families. Weather. Local news. Nothing especially dramatic. Nothing that future historians would record. And yet, as you listen, you realize these conversations may be among the most important experiences of your journey. History often focuses on extraordinary events. But most human lives are built from ordinary moments. Shared meals. Friendly discussions. Small acts of kindness. The foundations of civilization are surprisingly humble. The following days continue much the same way. Travel. Reflection. Observation. The farther you journey, the more your memories begin organizing themselves into patterns. Certain themes appear again and again. Community. Cooperation. Adaptation. Continuity. Ancient Egypt succeeds because its people understand these principles. Farmers depend on the Nile. Villages depend on farmers. Merchants connect communities. Scribes preserve knowledge. Priests maintain traditions. Sailors move goods. Every role supports others. The result is a civilization greater than the sum of its parts. One afternoon, you stop atop a ridge overlooking the Nile Valley. The view stretches for miles. Green fields follow the river's course. Villages cluster along its banks. Beyond them, the desert extends toward distant horizons. The contrast is striking. Life and emptiness. Water and sand. Abundance and scarcity. For a long time, you simply stand and watch. The landscape seems to summarize everything you have learned. Ancient Egypt is not remarkable because it escaped nature. It is remarkable because it learned to work with nature. The Nile provides opportunities. People transform those opportunities into civilization. Neither could succeed alone. As your journey continues, a curious feeling begins to emerge. You arrived expecting to learn about the ancient world. And you have. But you have also learned something about your own world. Many modern people imagine ancient civilizations as distant and alien. Fundamentally different. Yet the longer you spent here, the less true that seemed. The tools are different. The technology is different. The clothing is different. But the people? Not so different. They worry about their families. They hope for good harvests. They enjoy festivals. They share stories. They work hard. They help one another. Across thousands of years, human nature remains surprisingly recognizable. The realization changes the way you view history. Ancient people are no longer distant figures trapped in textbooks. They become individuals. Neighbors. Parents. Friends. Workers. Real human beings living real lives. Eventually, the familiar road leads you toward the place where your journey began. The route feels both new and familiar. A circle completed. A story approaching its final pages. Yet there is no sense of sadness. Only gratitude. The year has given you something valuable. Perspective. You have seen how an entire civilization functions. Not from the viewpoint of kings or conquerors, but from the viewpoint of ordinary people. And that perspective changes everything. As evening falls on the final day of travel, you stop beside the Nile one last time. The river glows beneath the setting sun. The water moves steadily toward the horizon. Just as it always has. Just as it always will. You sit quietly and watch. Tomorrow, your journey will finally end. But before it does, there is one final lesson waiting. A lesson not about Egypt alone, but about civilization itself. And about the countless ordinary people whose lives make extraordinary things possible. The sun is setting. Once again, you find yourself beside the Nile. The river moves quietly through the evening light, reflecting shades of gold, orange, and deep blue. A gentle breeze stirs the reeds along the shoreline. Birds cross the fading sky on their way to sheltered places for the night. The scene is peaceful. Familiar. And somehow, after everything you have experienced, it feels different from when you first arrived. Not because the river has changed. The Nile remains what it has always been. Steady. Patient. Enduring. No. The difference is in you. When your journey began, ancient Egypt seemed like a place of mysteries. A land of pyramids, temples, pharaohs, and treasures. The kind of civilization often reduced to a handful of famous images. You expected monuments. You expected legends. You expected greatness. And certainly, you found those things. But they were not what surprised you most. What surprised you were the people. The ordinary people. The people history rarely places at the center of the story. Throughout your year beside the Nile, you met farmers who rose before dawn to tend their fields. You watched fishermen cast nets into the river's waters. You traveled with merchants carrying goods between distant communities. You shared meals with families gathered around simple tables. You observed scribes preserving knowledge one careful stroke at a time. You witnessed craftsmen shaping clay, wood, and stone into useful objects. You saw priests maintaining traditions that connected generations. Again and again, the same lesson appeared. Civilization is not built by famous individuals alone. It is built by millions of ordinary actions. A seed planted. A boat repaired. A loaf of bread baked. A record written. A story shared. These small acts may seem insignificant in isolation. Yet together, they create something remarkable. A society. A culture. A civilization. The pyramids still stand in your memory. Of course they do. They are extraordinary achievements. Yet now, when you think about ancient Egypt, they are no longer the first image that comes to mind. Instead, you remember the harvest. Fields glowing gold beneath the sun. Entire communities working together to gather crops. You remember market days filled with conversation and laughter. You remember children playing beside the river. You remember the smell of fresh bread. The sound of grinding grain. The sight of boats moving across morning waters. The details of everyday life. Because everyday life is where civilization truly lives. Monuments may symbolize a culture. But ordinary people sustain it. As darkness slowly spreads across the valley, you reflect on the Nile itself. Throughout your journey, the river appeared again and again. During the flood. During planting season. During harvest. During travel. The Nile connected every chapter of the story. And perhaps that is fitting. Because connection is the theme that runs through all of ancient Egypt. The river connects villages. Trade connects communities. Writing connects generations. But most days in ancient Egypt were not dramatic. Most days involved work. Meals. Conversations. Responsibilities. The same things that fill most human lives today. That may be the most important lesson of all. The people of ancient Egypt were not characters in a distant story. They were human beings. Much like you. Much like anyone. They worried about the future. They celebrated successes. They faced hardships. They cared for their families. They hoped for good harvests. They enjoyed festivals. They told stories. They dreamed about better days. Across thousands of years, those experiences remain recognizable. History often creates distance between us and the people who came before. Yet the more closely you look, the smaller that distance becomes. The tools change. The technology changes. The world changes. But human nature remains remarkably familiar. The realization brings a quiet sense of comfort. You are not separate from history. You are part of it. The same long human story continues. Different chapters. Different settings. The same essential themes. Around you, the evening grows darker. Stars begin appearing overhead. One by one. Then dozens. Then hundreds. The same stars that shone above ancient farmers. Above merchants. Above scribes. Above children running through village streets. The same stars that watched over generations of people who lived, worked, and dreamed beside this river. For a moment, the centuries seem to disappear. Past and present feel connected. Not identical, but connected. The people of ancient Egypt are no longer distant figures trapped behind museum glass. They feel real. Because they were real. And because their lives mattered. Every field they planted. Every house they built. Every meal they shared. Every story they told. Together, those ordinary moments created one of history's greatest civilizations. The night deepens. The Nile becomes a ribbon of silver beneath the moonlight. Most of the village has gone to sleep. Only a few distant lights remain visible. The world grows quiet. Peaceful. Still. Your journey is ending. But the river continues. The fields will be planted again. The floods will return. Children will grow into adults. Stories will pass from one generation to the next. Life will continue. That continuity is the true wonder of ancient Egypt. Not a single monument. Not a single ruler. But the enduring ability of ordinary people to build communities, share knowledge, support one another, and carry civilization forward through time. And perhaps that is why you would not survive a year in ancient Egypt. Not because the people were weaker than you, or stronger than you, but because their world demanded skills, knowledge, patience, and endurance developed through a lifetime of experience. The farmers understood the river. The sailors understood the currents. The craftsmen understood their materials. The scribes understood their records. Everyone possessed expertise shaped by years of practice. Ancient life was not simple. It was deeply sophisticated in ways modern people often overlook. Yet despite those differences, something unexpected happened during your journey. The more you learned about ancient Egypt, the less foreign it seemed. Beneath the unfamiliar clothing, tools, and customs, you discovered something recognizable. Human beings doing their best. Building lives. Supporting families. Creating communities. Finding meaning. Much as people always have. The river flows quietly beneath the stars. The night air is cool. The world is calm. And as you sit beside the Nile one final time, watching the waters disappear into darkness, you understand at last what ancient Egypt really was. Not merely a kingdom. Not merely a collection of monuments. Not merely a chapter in a history book. But a living world. Filled with real people. Connected by a river. Bound together by work, tradition, and hope. A civilization carried forward not by the famous few, but by the countless ordinary people whose names history never recorded. And somehow, that makes it even more extraordinary. The end. Thank you for joining this journey through a year in ancient Egypt. Sleep well, and may the Nile carry your thoughts gently into the night. Sweet dreams.